and found quite a crowd of little animals and birds waiting outside. They all made a rush at Alice the moment she appeared, but she ran off as hard as she could and soon found herself safe in a thick wood. There was a large mushroom growing near her, about the same height as herself. She stretched herself up on tiptoe, and her eyes immediately met those of a large blue caterpillar that was sitting on the top with its arms folded, quietly smoking a long hookah, taking not the smallest notice of anything else. "Who are you?" said the caterpillar. This was not an encouraging opening for a conversation. Alice replied, rather shyly, I hardly know, sir, just at present." "What do you mean by that?" said the caterpillar sternly. "Explain yourself." "I can't explain myself, I'm afraid, sir," said Alice, "because I'm not myself, you see." "I don't see," said the caterpillar. "Well, perhaps your feelings may be different," said Alice. "All I know is, it feels very queer to me." "You?" said the caterpillar contemptuously. "Who are you?" Alice felt a little irritated at the caterpillar's making such very short remarks. It seemed to be in a very unpleasant state of mind, and she turned away. "Come back," the caterpillar called after her. "I've something very important to say." This sounded promising. "Keep your temper," said the caterpillar. "Is that all?" said Alice, swallowing down her anger as well as she could. "No," said the caterpillar. "So you think you're changed, do you?" "I'm afraid I am, sir," said Alice. "I can't remember things as I used, and I don't keep the same size for 10 minutes together." "What size do you want to be?" asked the caterpillar. "Well, I should like to be a little larger, sir, if you wouldn't mind," said Alice. 3 inches is such a wretched height to be." "It's a very good height indeed," said the caterpillar angrily, rearing itself upright as it spoke. It was exactly 3 inches high. "But I'm not used to it," pleaded Alice in a piteous tone, and she thought to herself, "I wish the creatures wouldn't be so easily offended." "You'll get used to it in time," said the caterpillar, and put the hookah into its mouth and began smoking again. In a minute or two it took the hookah out of its mouth and yawned once or twice and shook itself. Then it got down off the mushroom and crawled away into the grass, merely remarking as it went, "One side will make you grow taller, and the other side will make you grow shorter." "One side of what? The other side of what?" thought Alice to herself. "Of the mushroom," said the caterpillar, just as if she'd asked it aloud, and in another moment it was out of sight. For a minute or two Alice stood looking at the house and wondering what to do next, when suddenly a footman in livery came running out of the wood. He was in livery, otherwise, judging by his face only, she would have called him a fish, and rapped loudly at the door with his knuckles. It was opened by another footman in livery, with a round face and large eyes like a frog, and both footmen, Alice noticed, had powdered hair that curled all over their heads. The fish footman began by producing from under his arm a great letter, nearly as large as himself, and this he handed over to the other, saying in a solemn tone, "For the Duchess, an invitation from the Queen to play croquet." The frog footman repeated in the same solemn tone, "From the Queen, an invitation for the Duchess to play croquet." They both bowed low. Then the fish footman was gone, and the other was sitting on the ground near the door, staring stupidly up into the sky. Alice went timidly up to the door and knocked. "There's no sort of use in knocking," said the footman. And certainly there was a most extraordinary noise going on within. "I shall sit here," the footman remarked, "till tomorrow." At this moment the door of the house opened, and a large plate came skimming out straight at the footman's head. It just grazed his nose and broke to pieces against one of the trees behind him. "Oh, next day, maybe." "How am I to get in?" asked Alice. "Are you to get in at all?" said the footman. "That's the first question, you know." "Oh, there's no use talking to him," said Alice desperately. "He's perfectly idiotic." And she opened the door and went in. The door led right into a large kitchen, which was full of smoke from one end to the other. The Duchess was sitting on a three-legged stool in the middle, nursing a baby. The cook was leaning over the fire, stirring a large cauldron which seemed to be full of soup. "There's certainly too much pepper in that soup," Alice said to herself as well as she could for sneezing. Even the Duchess sneezed occasionally, and the baby was sneezing and howling alternately. The only things in the kitchen that did not sneeze were the cook and a large cat which was sitting on the hearth and grinning from ear to ear. "Please would you tell me," said Alice a little timidly, "why your cat grins like that?" "It's a Cheshire cat," said the Duchess, "and that's why." Alice went on again. "I didn't know that Cheshire cats always grinned. In fact, I didn't know that cats could grin." "They all can," said the Duchess, "and most of 'em do." "I don't know of any that do," Alice said very politely, feeling quite pleased to have got into a conversation. "You don't know much," said the Duchess, "and that's a fact." Alice did not at all like the tone of this remark, and thought it would be as well to introduce some other subject of conversation. The cook took the cauldron of soup off the fire, and at once set to work throwing everything within her reach at the Duchess and the baby. The fire irons came first, then followed a shower of saucepans, plates, and dishes. The Duchess took no notice of them even when they hit her, and the baby was howling so much already it was quite impossible to say whether the blows hurt it or not. "Oh, please mind what you're doing," cried Alice. "If everybody minded their own business," the Duchess said, "the world would go round a deal faster than it does." "Which would not be an advantage," said Alice. "Just think what work it would make with the day and the night. You see, the earth takes 24 hours to turn round on its axis." "Talking of axes," said the Duchess, "chop off her head." And with that she began nursing her child again, singing a sort of lullaby to it as she did so, and giving it a violent shake at the end of every line. "Speak roughly to your little boy and beat him till he sneezes. He only does it to annoy because he knows it teases." While the Duchess sang, she kept tossing the baby violently up and down, and the poor little thing howled. "Here, you may nurse it for a bit if you like," the Duchess said to Alice, flinging the baby at her as she spoke. "I must go and get ready to play croquet with the Queen," and she hurried out of the room. It was a queer-shaped little creature, and held out its arms and legs in all directions, just like a starfish, thought Alice. She carried it out into the open air. "If I don't take this child away with me," thought Alice, "they are sure to kill it in a day or two. Wouldn't it be murder to leave it behind?" "Don't grunt," said Alice. "That's not at all a proper way of expressing yourself." The baby grunted again, and Alice looked very anxiously into its face. There could be no mistake about it. It was neither more nor less than a pig, and she felt that it would be quite absurd for her to carry it any further. So she set the little creature down, and felt quite relieved to see it trot away quietly into the wood. She was a little startled by seeing the Cheshire cat sitting on a bough of a tree a few yards off. "Cheshire puss," she began rather timidly. However, it only grinned a little wider. "Come, it's pleased so far," thought Alice. "Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?" "It depends a good deal on where you want to get to," said the cat. "I don't much care where," said Alice. "Then it doesn't much matter which way you go," said the cat. Alice felt this could not be denied, so she tried another question. "What sort of people live about here?" "In that direction," the cat said, waving its right paw round, "lives a hatter, and in that direction," waving the other paw, "lives a March hare. Visit either you like. They're both mad." "But I don't want to go among mad people," Alice remarked. "Oh, you can't help that," said the cat. "We're all mad here. I'm mad. You're mad." "How do you know I'm mad?" said Alice. "You must be," said the cat, "or you wouldn't have come here. Do you play croquet with the Queen today?" "I should like it very much," said Alice, "but I haven't been invited yet." "You will see me there," said the cat, and vanished. Alice had not gone much farther